Hi everyone, I'm Amy, the roaming historian. I'm so happy that you joined me today. I recently I've started roaming historian a decade ago in 2015, but recently I've been trying to really amp up the YouTube channel and talk to people better here because this is really where I grew more is the interaction. So if you're here for the first time, welcome. I'm so glad that you joined us. If you're a repeat, well, thank you so much. I love talking with you guys. I really hope that, I wish we could actually, maybe someday in the future, if we get enough subscribers to this channel, which by the way, subscribe, please. Um, if we get enough subscribers, maybe I can do things where we have, virtual events and we can talk and you guys can riff with me in real time because I would love that. But for now, please, any comments you have on this video or any travel topic that you want, please let me know. Today, I want to just do a quick travel tip because I go on a lot of blogs, like just whether it's like a Reddit sub or a Facebook feed or, just different areas. And I see people constantly asking about converting to euros. And, there's a lot of misinformation, a lot of bad information. Before I went to grad school to be a history professor, my first career was in I was a stockbroker. It was in financial advising. And so I'm always looking at money and thinking about the most cost effective ways of doing things. And the first time that John and I went to Europe, I actually kind of got screwed over on the currency exchange. I listened to a travel agent who charged money. Was it a big amount? No, but it's my money. I don't want a dime of it. If you watch, mind your pennies, the dollars will look out for themselves, right? And so I tend to be quite cheap with my money, and we go to Europe. I try to go to Europe every single year and try to go for, time a good deal at a time. And so I want to make sure that my money goes the furthest. So I made this quick little PowerPoint that kind of overviews, my points and what I hope will be just really concise, hey, this is how to get you money. These are the terms, so on and so forth. So without further ado, let me just show you that. Okay, so here we have, I'm calling it essential tips for converting dollars to euros. And the terms I'm going to go over here are currency exchange rate, foreign transaction fee, currency conversion fee. Sometimes you'll hear this called foreign currency fee, and dynamic currency conversion. And by the way, my website, roaminghistorian.com, that's just roaming, like I'm roaming around, not Roman, roaming historian, and I'm a professional historian. .com is where I also have written out, I have an article about that. You can search just under currency, and I'm sure it'll pop up some of my tips. But currency exchange rate. Now, this is the everyday, this is the only one that really is the one that you should be looking at most and first and foremost. This is the value of one country's currency against another. So a dollar in the United States today buys about 96 cents worth of euros. And so in this case, we're going to look at the value of dollars to euro. This exchange rate will fluctuate daily. Last week, at one point, I think it was 105. So I would have gotten 95 cents for a dollar. In fact, I did because I bought some train tickets. So I use either www.xe.com or I just Google. Honestly, Google is just as easy. And here's Google, just put in dollar to euro and I put in $100. So if I was to, say, here's 100 US dollars, how many euros am I going to get? I'm going to get 95 euros and 53 cents. So that's what I'm going to get. And like I said, this rate, this will change every single day. It's based on valuations of currency, who's the stronger currency at that time, confidence in a government will cause fluctuations. So sometimes if there's really high confidence, we might see a very, big disparity. And this is also, it's a great travel tip to know. I'm in Michigan. We border Canada. And so I use currency exchange right now. We have the dollar is favorable to the Canadian dollar. So it's a great place for me if I'm going to go spend, time in a hotel, let's say. And I can just cross the border and go over to Windsor, or I could stay in Detroit. It's actually cheaper just for me, more cost effective to go over to Windsor because of the exchange. So you should always know currency exchange. Currency exchange is your number one. It'll also help you when you're budgeting for your vacation, because when you're budgeting for your vacation, if euro is much higher, and I mean, there's been times where I've gone over and it was like $1.40. And so we had a really negative. So in other words, €1 or $1 would have gotten me about 60 cents worth of euro. I've seen some really ugly stuff over the years, but okay. So that's the main term. That's the term. You can't escape it. You can't, you just have to know what is the currency exchange rate. And you want to go with what the standard is, because that's what the banks will use. That's what anybody's going to use. The next fee is a fee that you don't need to pay. Actually, the rest of them are all fees you don't need to pay. That's the only thing you have to do, is you have to exchange your currency into, and so you may either gain on that currency exchange, depending on what kind of currency you're exchanging to and from, or you might lose out on that. Now, your foreign transaction fee, this is a charge on the transaction itself. This is a flat rate percentage. It's usually around 2 to 3%. You don't need to pay this. There are plenty of credit cards that don't have foreign transaction fees. There are plenty, my regular bank charges foreign transaction fees on debit, but my Schwab bank account does not. I'll talk more about Schwab in a second. And my credit union doesn't. So they charge no fee. They just charge the basic, here's the rate, this is the currency exchange, and that's great. When you hear people say they buy things, when they're buying, they're often getting charged a fee. So, you can go to AAA. AAA, depending on your membership, will let you, may or may not charge you a fee. Your bank may or may not charge you a fee. Then there's this currency conversion fee, and the currency conversion fee, or also sometimes you'll see this referred to as the foreign currency exchange fee, is the fee that the institution is doing because they have to, it causes them pain or problems. So this is generally charged by merchants in order to convert the currency into euros, in this case, dollars to euros, or vice versa. And a lot of times this is about 1%. So you might have, they might, charge you if they're doing the conversion, and that's because they're paying some type of foreign transaction fee, or they're passing that on. And then the last term that you might hear is dynamic currency conversion. And the dynamic currency conversion is, just ignore this, okay? If you see this, please don't do this. This is a service that allows you to convert the purchase on the spot into your currency. People like to, some people like to see that, and it pops up where you least expect it. So you might be paying for dinner in a Paris cafe, and all of a sudden you see that you can pay with US dollars, and you think to yourself, oh, well, that's great. I'm just going to do that. I'm going to pay with US dollars, because that way I'll know exactly how much I spent on this dinner, as opposed to doing the math. But don't. There's always a fee tacked onto this, and often it can be exorbitant. And this is where they can really charge you up to, as you can see here, 12%. I've seen some really gross figures. So don't do the dynamic currency conversion. If you're at an ATM and it says, would you like us to do the conversion for you? Would you like to? Don't, just say no and take out the money in the currency of the country you're visiting. So if you're in Europe and you're in the Eurozone, obviously some places like Great Britain goes in the pound, but if you're where they accept euros, then say, I'll accept euros, because you've already taken care of your other stuff. Remember, you've already made sure that you have a credit card and a debit card without foreign transaction fees, and that you're not paying foreign currency fees, and you've already done all the other good stuff. So how do you get the foreign currency, right? Well, there's two things you can do. You can get it before you leave. that can be more costly, or you can just get it there. So you can buy foreign currency, but only do it if it's free. Okay. Be very aware. A lot of times it's not free. And how you know how to do it, you go back to that Google or the xe.com, that currency, and you just figure out. So let's say you want to get $100 worth of euros. If they say anything, if you type in 100 and it says it's supposed to give you $95.54, if they offer you anything other than $95.54, they're charging you a fee. And you need to ask them, why are you charging me a fee? And where does that fee come in? And if they are charging you a fee, hold off. Never use a currency exchange company. They will always charge you a fee. That's their reason to be. They're the raison d'etre. That's why they're in business, is to make money on people at the airport who all of a sudden say, oh my gosh, I might need, 50 euro for a taxi when I get there. And they figure, aha, we can get you. And so I do not use those, yes, if you're not going to go back to Europe every year, you might want to try to spend down as much of your euro as you can. So, kind of maybe be sensible about how much you're taking out. But I go back and forth between Europe enough that I just carry the currency back with me if I have a little bit left over. If I didn't use, if I took out 100 euro out of an ATM and I still have, 20 euro, then I just bring the 20 euro back, as opposed to losing my money, because it's my money and I worked hard for it and I don't want to ever give it away to just an exchange company. Your number two things that you need is you need a good debit card, one with no foreign transaction fees, one with no foreign conversion fees, and one that is just going to use the exchange rate for that day. And you need a good credit card that is doing the exact same thing. No added fees. It's only going to charge you whatever the currency exchange rate is for that day. If some debit cards even waive your ATM fees. And so Charles Schwab is one of those companies that they waive you, and I'm not affiliated with Charles Schwab. I don't get a kickback from Charles Schwab. So, but I do think it's a good deal, and I like my followers to know the best deals for their money. And so I like that whenever, I generally wouldn't go to an airport ATM because there's usually a high ATM fee, like $10, $7 ATM fee, which is crazy high. But if I know Charles Schwab is giving it to me back, I'm less likely to really care that much. That being said, when I do get money from an ATM in Europe, I almost always, it would be a rare exception that I would not go to one attached to a bank. I go to the kind that are attached to a bank, that are enclosed, that are during banking hours. That way, if something happens, the machine eats my card, I can at least go in the bank and say, hey, your machine ate my card. Can you open up the machine and see it? And I can, do everything I need right then and there. It's really the best way to do it. And I always check for skimmers, make sure that when you're inserting it, that the machine looks clean, free from tampering, doesn't look like anybody's put a card skimmer on it. Of course, be aware of your surroundings. That's why I go to the kind that are kiosks inside, like a bank vestibule. That way I can, kind of have some privacy. And so here's your little checklist. This will just help you get through. So number one, before you go to Europe, make sure you have a debit card that has no or low fees, okay? Preferably no fees, but if you really have a hard time, go with something that has very, very low fees. Number two, get a credit card with no or low fees. Number three, please get a backup card. And I can't state this enough. If something happens to you and you are abroad and you have everything through one account, and then that account is frozen because, let's say, your wallet was stolen, how are you going to get money? And so what I have is I have a backup card that I can keep in the safe at the hotel or wherever I'm staying. And that way, if I'm out and about and somebody does steal my wallet, I still am not stranded in a foreign country with no means. I can go to a different account that has a backup card on it. And that's why it's good to have at least two different accounts that are going to work with no fees so that you can always have a backup. Make sure you check your daily withdrawal limit. If necessary, get it made higher. The last thing you want is if you can't call home, you're in Europe and maybe you didn't up for the calling plan, and all of a sudden you realize that you have like $100 a day limit, and that can get really costly, especially if you don't have Charles Schwab and you have to pay for ATM fees. So I always call my banks, and this is the number, this is the last step. Always let your banks know you're traveling, okay? That's the number one thing that you can do is that you want to, sorry, let's there we go. See if we can get into focus here. And obviously we are not in focus. Wow. I am sorry for that. I will try to get you in focus here. Well, we're not going to focus on me, so let's go back over to your checklist. That's better than an out of focus Amy, right? So let your banks know you're traveling. Check the daily withdrawal limit, as high as you think you're going to need it. And then say, hey, here's the countries I'm going to be. This helps in, now most credit cards these days, most credit cards don't need that. And they'll tell you when you call in, oh, we don't need to know. But most banks I find do. Most banks like to know where you're traveling to, and they put notations on your account. And that way, if something should happen, if your account is, your card is stolen or compromised in some way, they can know if you were supposed to be in, let's say, Italy, and all of a sudden you get a bunch of charges coming from Istanbul. And they can say, okay, something might have happened with Amy's card, and we're going to let her know. So, anyways, those are my tips. We'll see if I'm in focus again. No, I'm still not in focus. Oh, I'm sorry, folks. And so anyways, I hope that helps you. I hope that if you have any questions or comments, what are your tactics? How do you travel? How do you get money? What kind of tips and tricks do you have? Pop them down below in the comment box. Have a great day and ciao.